It was always, oh, you guys screwed up. And, not that they never wanted to assume that we were absolute extreme professionals who executed to the utmost of our ability and were very thoughtful in what we did. It's funny because some of that continues to this day about my community. I won't, say names, but a previous AFSOC commander, when they were having a lot of the DEI stand downs, and I'm not talking politics at all, but when they were having those stand downs, he actually directed a stand down within the community, the gunship community, to reflect on the fact that they killed so many people, that they were stone cold killers.
Really?
And that he didn't come from our community, but that was his perception. And nothing could be further from the truth. I mean, the gunship community spends so much time. The worst thing in our mind would ever be fratricide. And we spend so much time to prevent that. And I told you that people count, but that it's not like there were posters around the squadron of, oh, we slayed this many people or whatever. That wasn't the case. Just some individual people did, but it was never a common theme in the squadron that we're just going to go kill whatever we see. It was quite the opposite. There were many times I didn't shoot because I didn't know. And, if the only time I would push it beyond a limit is if I thought an American or a coalition partner was going to die if I didn't do something. And, there were times I thought long and hard, especially doing like a danger close shoot. That is probably, I was even more scared on that mission than I was having a couple of man-pats get really close to me. Shooting in very close proximity, hearing them say danger close, hearing my rounds hitting in the background on that radio. And, I showed you on the symbology before, the PA and the CIP, and seeing them almost on top of each other, knowing that the secondary sensor was tracking the friendlies. And my CCIP is on top of them. I said a very quick prayer before I pushed that button. And the gun went off. Please don't let me screw this up. And they're just screaming, just send it, man. We're going to die if you don't. Send it. So, extreme circumstances. So, yeah, that flavor of that board and some other things that have happened to people always kind of stuck in my craw that, nobody ever wanted to just take our side and assume that we were doing the right thing.
Is that part and parcel of being part of the Air Force? You've already talked about broken promises. You've talked about disappointment from your point of view. And do you have to be pragmatic and just accept?
You have to be, and I don't want it to say, oh, I hate the Air Force. I had a wonderful career. I don't regret my career at all. And like I told you previously, I ended up exactly where I was supposed to be. And maybe that's just how the plan is supposed to happen. The things that got me was the Air Force always preached its core values, and then the Air Force itself would violate its core values, especially integrity. And that was my hang up, the whole time. Usually it was around bad leaders in the institution. We talked about one and how that would happen. And that part was a disappointment, but still, my God, I had an incredible career. They taught me how to fly an airplane. I'm still out there flying today. Was able to build a pretty wonderful life for myself and travel and see the world. So, in that part of the whole thing, you just have to be pragmatic. You just have to be. So with combat, I thought I would share a funny story to maybe bring it full circle. And it's just a quick reminder of where we all stand in life and in the world. Go ahead.
Hold it for the end, if that's okay. I've got some more questions for you.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. And I have plenty of time, and I want to show you some more video and a small jab at Star Baby. Love him to death, but me shooting a particular target that will not please him.
I think he welcomes people telling giving him a run for his money. So
absolutely.
Let me just before we do the video and the rest of it, I just want to ask you then about that sort of danger close situation. It's two questions really. Do you pre-visualize what you're going to do in certain situations? Do you think about you're obviously very logically minded. You go by prescriptive approach, but obviously you can operate independently of that if you need to. That much is clear. But do you think ahead of time, well, these are my personal limits for what I will accept and what I won't accept? And then the second part of the question is, when someone says to you, just send it because we're going to die anyway, does that all go out the window? Is it academic at that point?
No, it's not academic. And I still had base level brainstem function TTPs that I would employ in that situation. And let me give you an example. If they said, the bad guys are 270 for 29 meters, I might not put the first round 270 at 29 meters. I might put the first round 270 at 50 meters and walk it in that way. My rationale for doing that is now I'm helping add just a slight safety margin, taking any of the gun delta or error out and walking the rounds into the target, but from an aspect that's away from the friendlies, the bad guys. So yes, I did visualize it. I did think about that. I talked about it with my crew relentlessly. My crew probably got tired of me talking. I would have a meeting anytime we started a deployment, and then every week or so we'd talk about new TTPs or how we were adjusting things. But I would always talk about, hey, if we get into the danger close scenario, here's how we're going to do it. And I want it to be muscle memory for us. So we just fall right on top of our training. The more you have the training and fall on top of your muscle memory, the less likely you are to make mistakes. And that's exactly what we did. And we started in that case slightly away and walked the rounds in. Luckily that night the gun was dead on. The 40 millimeter was such a sniper weapon. It was like a sniper, rifle shooting from 10,000 feet away, that you could put those 2-pound projectiles in very, very close to bad people. And they actually did a fair amount of damage. A decent amount of frag, but if you got a direct hit, it was just going to tear somebody up.
I think that we talk on, maybe we were talking privately rather than when record was on, or it was over email, whatever. But I'd said to you a while back that there was, I really like the Sean Ryan podcast. I don't know if you follow him or watch him, but Navy SEAL guy, and he's fantastic. It's all the operators on. There was an operator he had on a while back, a Delta guy, I think, and he was somewhat critical of his own experience at a given point in time of the AC-130 guys not being prepared to shoot in order to support him, and that's obviously something he's carried to this day as something he felt was not justifiable. I don't want to ask you to address that directly because I don't remember the specifics and it's probably not appropriate anyway, but generally, when you heard that the customer was unhappy, or when there was an expectation that you would fire and you didn't, or when they didn't understand why you were saying what you were saying, how did you resolve that?
Yeah, in a couple of different ways. So I know of at least one guest on Sean Ryan's podcast, and Sean is fantastic, as you alluded to. He gets some great guests, and he's very good at pulling out those key questions. One guest has been very critical of the gunship, and the guy deserves a kick in the nuts because he's lying. He says gunships would not fly during the day, and that's the founder of a certain organization or private company out there. When I saw that, my blood boiled. I actually sent Sean Ryan a note. I don't know if it was him or just one of his staff sent me a thing. Yeah, we'll look into it. And then I never heard another word. And I don't know if it's because the guest was a former SEAL or whatever, but he told a bold-faced lie and insulted my community, so screw him. On other occasions, there were not very many occasions when we said we would not shoot. If it was that we were afraid we were going to frat somebody and we didn't have danger close authorization, or we didn't have VID, PID, or there were other factors around that target within the ROE that would restrict us, children, women, things like that. And we took that very seriously. And if an American or a coalition partner wasn't going to die, then I would rather err on the side of caution and safety than kill an innocent. So if that upset them, I'm sorry. Somebody has to be the arbiter there of the ROE and employ to the best of our ability without crossing those lines. Morally, ethically, all of that. And everybody I knew in the gunship took it very seriously. There was hardly, I can't think of anybody that said, oh, just mow them all down. Nobody was like that. We were very clinical, very mathematical in what we did. And ultimately all fell on the shoulders of the aircraft commander, me, because I had the A code for the sortie, and I was the one that was going to be judged for what happened. I mean, they'd go after the whole crew, but I bore the responsibility. So I can only think of one or two occasions when I didn't shoot. And I don't believe the ground party was upset by that. I don't know the particular circumstances with the Delta guy. I'd certainly like to, and have a better understanding. I don't know what the rationale was.
Did you operate with, I mean, you may not be able to answer the question, but did you operate with other coalition forces? There's an interview I did with Ned Lynch. He and his wingman Wolfman went out and were the first responders in inverted commas for, I think it was Bravo 20, an SBS bunch, guys in the Iraqi desert. Western Iraq, and I know it was an AC-130 that eventually rolled in there and helped those guys out. They were surrounded. So My question would be really, you worked with those guys. Was there a difference? Is there standardization across all the tiers, the tiered forces? What were your experiences of working with the Brits?
The Brits were just fantastic. Always, obviously, the accent on the radio, but the SAS and SBS guys were just incredible, super professional. But we had the added benefit within AFSOC that we routinely brought those folks to Hurlburt and we trained with them. We always had calls for fire training out of the range, and it was cycling people through all the time. And I can recall in combat a time or two recognizing the voice of the person that I had trained with back at home station. And there's a synergy that comes from that. That's what SOF constantly preaches. Like in the gunship, almost every single mission is a live fire mission. And a lot of, I don't think an F-16 goes out and does strafe every single mission. They don't have the budget. There are only 8 gunships, so we had ammo to do that. And we were constantly training with those partners. So you built that intimacy of understanding with them. The Brits were fantastic. I worked with the Danes and a couple other countries. They were all equivalent to the American forces that I worked with. I saw no difference in their capability or standards. I truly loved working with the Brits. They were not to say they were happy, but they were just, okay, let's get on with it, the stiff upper lip and let's press and get the mission done, regardless whatever the obstacle was. I'm like, that is so refreshing. Let's get the mission done and execute.
If you enjoyed this clip and want more, you can go to 10percenttrue.com, hit subscribe, you get early ad-free access to all my content. Appreciate your support.